Welcome to Networking Working, the podcast where real business stories meet meaningful connections. Brought to you by Business Matching UK, the UK's first business matching membership service with a business opportunity guarantee. Whether you're building something new, scaling something established, or just exploring smarter ways to move your business forward, you are in the right place.
Welcome back to Networking Working. In our last episode, we explored what the Academy is and how it's supporting businesses across the BMUK network. Today, we're turning the spotlight onto the man behind the mission, Pugh, to hear how the idea came to life and what he's learned from working with so many businesses over the years. Welcome back to Networking Working, Phil.
Thank you very much, Elisa.
Let's go back a little bit. What's your own background in business and how did you first get into this world of support and mentoring?
Ooh, at my age, that would be such a long story, so we'll skip over some of it. When I left my education platform at university, I went into corporate life, and even though I've never smoked in my life, I did actually try a pipe when I was a younger man but didn't like it. I spent 25 years in the tobacco industry, making other people smoke cigarettes and tobacco and all that good stuff. But as I went through my corporate life, I understood much more that there is a lot more to business than just being given a budget, which, to be fair, in a corporate responsibility, you have very little responsibility for it if you make a mistake. I did make mistakes and I spent money needlessly, and no one really came up and said, you need to pay that back. So I was in production management, and as I went through the echelons of power with BAT and spent some time overseas, I grew more frustrated with people who were in marketing and in sales and finance. So when I then became responsible for a number of factories and responsible for quite large sums of money, I got very frustrated with salespeople telling me, by the way, Mr. Pugh, you now have to make these cigarettes with that blend at that cost. And I'm saying to them, but you could have spoken to me last week or even yesterday, and I could have prepared. How do you expect me to stop a jobbing factory and change over? Just do it. And that frustrated me no end, because the kernel for the business was manufacturing, not sales and marketing, even though corporates like BAT was all about sales and marketing. So after 25 years, I decided I would leave and I would try and understand more than how to spend money, but how to make it and how salespeople and marketing people actually got on with their work. So, long story cut short, I left BAT and I decided that I would open up a small business importing and selling white goods. Wow. So I used the contacts that I had through BAT and I started to import white goods. And I started then to sell them to outlets in the UK, principally in the Northeast, and that grew quite successfully. What it taught me to do was to understand all the things that I know about my own present business, cash flow in particular, how to market, how to sell, or how to attempt to sell and how to attempt to market, because you never can do it exactly right all of the time. And that business I held on to for about 3 or 4 years. I had about 6 employees, and I thought, well, okay, I have broken my teeth on that. That's fantastic. And the guys that I employed, guys and girls, were really good. So they bought me out. So I sold it to them, and they were actually functioning until about 10 years ago. So they were in the business good 15 years. So what I then did was to go into business consultancy. So I just set myself up as a business consultant, as you do. You know, you've done this and you've done that. You can put a badge on and say, I'm now an expert, and here I go. And in those days, 80s and 90s, and people would listen to, if you had a strap line and you were confident and you could stand up and say you were able to do X, Y, and Z, then, you know, you could possibly sell that idea. And I worked as a business consultant for another 5 years or so, developed a couple of training programs, educational programs for business, got into some very large businesses and some small businesses, worked a bit of a time with Barclays and got them into process management and the sorts of things that would improve their efficiency. Not successful because look how ineffectual banks are today.
Yeah.
I did all the wrong things. Sorry about that, guys. It's not my fault in total. Not my fault. And I did that quite well, enjoyed it. It gave me freedom. Family life was quite good. And then one of my friends at uni said to me, I've got a job for you. We'd like you to go down to the South Coast again for a couple of weeks, work in this organization and help them get through their PSI standard. And I said, okay, but that's not really my forte. And he said, don't worry, just make it up as you go along. So I went down to this organization and I did. And I stayed there for 5 years again, and I couldn't get out. And I couldn't leave because they just loved it. So within the organization, they had divisions. So I worked within divisions, within small groups, brought in group working, all the sort of stuff that a consultant would do. Naughtily, really naughty here, it gave me the opportunity of developing my own product, which was a business management system. And I gave the IP address to my friend, and he said, well, what do you want to do with it? So I said, leave it with me. And what I did do, because I had worked in the States through BAT, naughty, this is really bad. I'm ashamed to tell everybody. I sold my platform whilst I was working for this company down on the South Coast. So after about 6 months, and I would stay over at night, and this particular company worked 24/7. So I finished my day job and I would stay. They didn't mind, and I would carry on working. And I was able to sell my product and process to 4 or 5 companies in the US without me being there. And then my friend said, here's a brown envelope, get on a plane, go out there and set up a business, open an office, which I did. So I went out to the States again, lived out the States for quite a few years, so that wasn't uncomfortable for me. Set an office up in Falls Church, which is on the East Coast, opened another one on the West Coast, opened another office in Vancouver. What we did, we sold technology, but we sold in principle this particular platform that I had developed. And it allowed me to go into organizations and help them to improve the processes or implement processes that help them to become more efficient. Now, the aim of those platforms wasn't to reduce labor. It was to improve the process and squeeze more money out of it, make them more efficient. Did that, left there because I had to come back to the UK. My parents were not very well, and I decided that I would go and get a job. Can you believe that? Get a job. Horrible. So that took me into sales. Now, I'm not a salesperson, but I genuinely believe good salespeople, honest salespeople, we all have that innate ability. I think many of you would say to me, I don't know how to sell. I can't sell. And my answer is, you can sell. You do it every day. You sell to your wife, your husband, your kids, the neighbor next door. You do it all the time. It's just having to sell something that is going to make you money. And other people would say, well, I can't ask for that. I can't charge them for my services. And that becomes an embarrassment, and so on and so on and so forth. I went back into a corporate life selling telecoms. I was successful at that. But again, I have to be honest, I cheated. I'm not mentioning company names. What happened was that when this particular company couldn't be honest with the customer, and they told me, tell a lie, pretend, do it the bad way, in my opinion. I didn't like that. So I wouldn't do it. So I then handed it out to a mate who then sold them what I couldn't sell them at the right price. And I did that for mobile communications and various other things because I wasn't going to charge anybody £600 and hold them into a contract for 10 years when it was only worth a fiver and they could hold a contract for 12 months. I did not want to do that. So eventually they sacked me, and I'm not surprised that they did that, but it taught me a big lesson about ethics. So as they took my company car away and made me get on a train to go home, which was fine, I'd already set up a business with my then wife, and we started to grow that business into what we have today, which is communications, connectivity, cybersecurity, and we've grown that over the past 15 years. So that's sort of potted history. There have been dips and drops and ins and outs. To get an example, I lost a company. I went into my garden and I had a week where I was building a coal shed. And to put food on the table, because I had 3 young children, I decided that I would start a little business. So I sold magic tricks to retailers. So I would get in my car and I would knock at all the stores around and I'd say, can I put this stand up? You will have a share of that. I will come back every week and restock it, blah, blah, blah. You keep a stock check, tell me, and so on and so forth. And that was hard work. But you're at the lower end of the scale. So people are looking at you and thinking, oh, God, what's this crap that's being put up here, but it sold. Kids
Yeah.
loved it. And I did that for a year. It brought some revenue in, kept the food on the table whilst I worked out all other things. So lots of dips and troughs and lots of exciting times and lots of really sad times as well. And here we are today. I'm being honest. Oh dear.
There's nothing wrong with being honest. Just going back to the point that you made about ethics, there is a lot, especially in the last couple of years, that are coming back to bite people on the bum with mis-selling. PPI is obviously the most well known, but there's also quite a few other bits and pieces that are coming back. It just goes to show it's always going to come out in the wash. So there's definitely value to be had in working ethically.
So true.
So you've obviously seen the highs and lows of business ownership over the years. What stuck with you the most?
I think more of the disappointment, and I think more of the disappointment with people, not necessarily with business, because you either read the book and put it into practice, you make a mistake, you learn from your mistake. But with people, it's different. You trust people, you get to know them, you like them. And as that trust grows, you put more into that trust. And I've been let down. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure I've let people down as well. It's not only a one-way street, but I've been let down a couple of times quite seriously where I have lost my business. It's been taken away from me. I trusted those people. So for me, the disappointment in people not telling the truth, or, I mean, I don't want to use the word respect because we always use the word, you don't respect me. It's more than that. It's the pain that you feel in your heart when you think that you have given your all to this situation and, you've signed a piece of paper. The person that you've signed it for is 10 times bigger than you. They are mega. And they reach down to you and they say, I like you and I like what you're doing and I want to help you. And really what they're saying is, excuse the language, I'm going to screw you when I get the first opportunity. And before you know it, the rug's gone. And I lost a business and a sizable net worth when I was 40. And I made another mistake when I was in my early 50s. And the pain stayed with me. Two elements of that pain, but more importantly, the first one was the fact that when I lost those two businesses, the second one in particular, I could do nothing about the people that worked for me. And they lost their livelihoods as far as I knew. Because, and again, I'm being honest with you, on a Friday morning, this particular year in November, I got a phone call to say, if I were you, I would leave by the back door. You can get into the car, but don't look back because the administrators are coming through the front door. And I couldn't believe it, but it was true. And I went into overdrive and I felt so ashamed. And I walked out the back, got into the car and I drove off. And I pulled over. I felt so sad and brokenhearted by the fact that not that I had lost the business, not that they had cheated on me, and this was a big American company. If you say, well, could you not do something about it? No, I couldn't. Yeah. They crushed me. Was the fact that I couldn't speak to the people who had given their sweat, the blood and the soul whilst I had that company to work for me and to work for them. And I couldn't say goodbye and I couldn't say sorry. And I couldn't say it wasn't me. And I had to walk away from that. And that disappointment in people. So what does that taught me? I have to say, it's taught me never to trust anybody. I keep my own counsel as much as possible, and I would not advise any of you to do that. Only be careful. You have to trust people. You have to like people. But be careful. Don't step so far over the edge without a parachute. You must have a parachute. By all means, take risks. Yes, we all take risks. But it's understanding the consequence of that risk. And I have to say, we don't understand what it can do for you when you make that mistake. So ethics is very important to me these days, certainly at my age. And there are people that have lost a lot more. Don't get me wrong. There are people that have lost the roof over their head. They've lost their family. I've seen it. They're destitute. They've got nothing. And they've lost the spirit of life. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because the deck has dealt them a bad hand. Yeah, okay. But you can play that hand. You can play the hand and not lose everything that's on the table. And then if the worst happens, you've got to be strong enough to come back. And you have to get yourself up off the floor. I know those words are so easy to say, but when you've got dark clouds rolling in on you, if you've got bailiffs after you, if you've got a bank after you, whatever it may be, and you think, I didn't bring this on myself. I've been set up.
Yeah.
I've contributed to it, but I haven't set the tsunami. So it's important, I think, more so today, honesty, integrity. Do we have it? I mean, that's the worry. I think there are fabulous people out there. There are people that want to be honest. I think we all start out wanting to be honest by wanting to be clean. And then what happens? You're told, well, if you don't play the game, you're not going to be in the game. You're going to lose because no one else is going to come and play with you. You think, is that really true? And I think that can be very sad if you happen to be in that pot. But if you can stand up and say, I did try my best, I have been as honest as I can be, because it doesn't matter what people say when they say to you, I never tell a lie. We all tell lies. They could be white lies. We all tell lies. We all protect ourselves. We are flawed as humans. We do it. So in business, it's important not to do that. And listeners will know of what's happened in many of the corporates that we hear about today, where dishonesty has been rife, and it will come back. Lisa, you said it comes back to bite you, whether it's today or tomorrow. So morality is important, honesty is key, and support and help for people who need that form of protection. And it's not saying, oh, I can do it better than you. It's saying, I would like to be an island. Even if that island just means I'm here and over a cup of coffee or a pint of beer or whatever it may be, you talk to me and just talk, let it out, because in doing that, there may be a road that you can take that takes you in a better direction.
From your past experience, was there one particular moment that made you think of the Academy as it stands now?
Yeah, I have to protect people here. So my co-director, Paul, had a very difficult time in his life. And I have had as well, and other people that I know also have had. And I can recall sitting down with him on a particular day some years ago when his life was in tatters. And Paul doesn't know I'm talking about this. We sat in a place looking over the North Sea, and he really didn't have anywhere to go. He was distraught. He had a vision. He had strength and ability, and it had all been washed away. I talked to him for many hours, and we continued to talk over the years. And I'll stop there because that's not my business at all. And that's happened with a couple of other people as well. I found that being able to, more than anything, listen. It's that ability to listen and hear what they're saying. And it's not, oh, yeah, well, you should have done this. And, oh, how stupid of you to do that. It's not that. It's just giving that person the time to get out from inside that huge weight that they've got. The guilt, the sadness, the loss, all of those things. Now, people call it grief. And get it out onto the table. And we all know this because it's a common adage. Talk about it. Yeah, okay. It's easier said than done, isn't it? And we can all talk about something, but we're not necessarily talking about the truth. That bit really is the bit that you've got to cough up and spit out, but you don't want to. You don't want to. And I've been in that situation myself. Over the years, I've sat and I've listened to people. The stories are very much the same. And again, it comes down to the person that you dealt with, the dishonesty with the other party, the mistake that you made, not only the trust that you put on people, but also the mistakes that you made as well.
Yeah.
Because you aren't always the innocent party. You've been involved. You've also contributed to it. You've been dragged along. You haven't been your own person. You inside have said, that's not right. But you've still gone along with it because it's paid your salary, or it's done X, or it's done Y. It takes a brave person. And I admire those people who put the brakes on and say, enough. I am going to be a whistleblower. Or I tell you what, I'm not going to be a whistleblower because I'm scared. I'm just going to leave because I can't do this anymore. The strength in being able to do that. They're the people that are trying to make a difference. They're the people that we should learn from. But we don't.
It sounds very familiar, what you've just described.
This episode of Networking Working is brought to you by Business Matching UK, the UK's first business matching membership service with a business opportunity guarantee. If you're tired of turning up to networking events that lead nowhere, BMUK guarantees to offer something different. Structured, supported, and strategically driven business development, designed to connect the right people in the right way at the right time. With a blend of face-to-face and online meetings, plus 7 IP and trademark protected mechanisms, BMUK guarantees real business opportunities, and that guarantee is the cornerstone of what makes us different. Stop chasing leads and referrals. Start matching with meaningful opportunities. Register your interest today at www.business-matching.co.uk. Business Matching UK. Matching ambition with opportunity.
Mentorship clearly plays a huge role in what the Academy's about. What is it about mentoring that you think makes the biggest difference?
That's a really good question and not an easy one to answer. So I think for me, if I'm talking to a business, if I'm talking to a business owner, it doesn't have to be the business owner, somebody in the business that has got a problem. If I believe what they're telling me is really the kernel, if I have got their trust and they are telling me the real burning anguish that they've got, it sounds awful if I say that pleases me, because that helps me to help them to understand that's the start of things getting better. Now, use the analogy again, if you've got an addiction, if you can admit to the addiction, they always say it's the start of the road of recovery. And I think that's right, because then you're thinking about what you should and shouldn't do. I have an addiction. I love Frosties. So I can go through a box of Frosties in the blink of an eye, and I've always been like that. And my family think, they just criticize me and say, you're going to die young. Because I can, and it's really bad. And I admit that. I can't help it. I open a box of Frosties, and you've got to take it away from me. I don't have that ability. And my wife will say the same with a pot of ice cream. She will say, shall I take that away from you now? And I say, you're going to have to. So mentoring, sitting in front of somebody or alongside somebody and talking about their problem is one thing. But being able to allow them to allow you to get behind the curtain, the veil. And you do know, you'll know if you're listening that what they're telling you is it. And to be honest with you, it may be something quite unrelated. It could be that problem is the fact they've lost the business or it's crumbling is the outcome, and the real cause is, I don't know, their family members walking out on them. They've got a problem, whatever it may be. It's not that. It's cause and effect. So then obviously you bring in the real expert for that particular issue. But being able to understand that, let me switch over and answer that in a different way. For a number of years, I worked as an associate tutor for the Open University. So I would look after a number of their business courses, and many listeners probably have been through Open University courses. So you will have a tutor meet up with you. There will be a day when you're spending with the tutor over a period of the year, maybe 3 or 4 times. He or she will mark your papers, all that sort of good stuff. To be able to meet up with a class that you haven't met up for maybe 3 or 4 months, to see them and to have them believe that you're carrying knowledge that will be useful for them, and for them to ask you that question, well, okay, I know you lost a business, tell me how you felt. But to share that and to try and say, well, okay, the mistake I made was this. So if you ever get to that position, that may not be the right decision, which was my wrong decision. You might do something else. But just be conscious of the fact that when you enter into that particular area, there will be so many things that will hit you left, right, and center. So be strong. Believe in yourself. Charity begins at home. When you get on a plane, when you go through the routine before you fly, what do they say about the mask, the oxygen mask, when it comes down? You put it on yourself first. Yeah. Even though you've got your toddler next to you, if you're dead, that's no help to the toddler. I know that sounds so crass. So believe in yourself. And I don't mean being arrogant about it, but if you don't, you're going to have great difficulty being able to paddle upstream. And life is very much like that. There's only the chosen few that have the ability to coast downstream. The rest of us have to paddle very hard upstream against the current. So being able to part some sort of knowledge, some sort of experience, I think is great. The other thing that we miss, I believe, in our culture today is the ability for the extended family. So if you look at other cultures, particularly Indian culture, Spanish culture, the grandparents are seen as gold mines. Those toddlers are given over to the grandparents, not just for babysitting, but for education. It's that wealth of knowledge that's imparted. It's the rules of life. And we've lost that ability for lots of different reasons. And mentoring there is so crucial, so crucial. I didn't have any grandparents. I'm an only child. My grandparents had passed away before I really could remember them. I listened to people who had grandparents and I think, oh, that would have been nice. Or siblings, wouldn't that have been nice? I didn't have that. I had to make up big 7-foot white rabbits to talk to. I was growing up, which was okay. And I'm a Gemini, so I'm schizophrenic as well, so it all helps. But mentoring is important, and I think we've lost that. There are lots of organizations out there, Entrepreneurial Spark is one, who talk about mentoring. Come in, we have a big room, we'll help you. It's all the right stuff. Even a little dose of mentoring every single year is fantastic. And what you have to do again is listen and hear what's being said, sift out what is useful for you, store the rest of it, because there is no doubt that as you travel through your own life, those bits that you think are going to be of no use, believe me, they will come up and they'll bite your bottom if you're not careful.
Very sound advice. You've supported a number of startups, early stage businesses, and people pivoting. Are there a number of common struggles that come up time and time again?
Confidence. And we're not talking about arrogance. We're talking about confidence. You can wake up on a Monday morning and you can have a dream. You've got the brightest idea. And you're a clever smart ass. You know your maths, you know how to speak, you know how it's done, all that sort of stuff. You've got it. You got it made. But then, because it's come to you so easily, there's doubt. That little monster called doubt sneaks in. And the common theme I've found is that there are times of reflection. Consultants love to call it downtime or reflection. And that often is the period of doubt when the entrepreneur or the business owner says, I don't know, A, if I can do it, B, if I want to do it, and C, I'm actually scared of doing it. And having that confidence in self, it's not the business. They've got the support around them. They know 1, 2, 3, 4, and they know all the sort of stuff that they need to put in place. But it starts to wallow and wane because they lack the confidence in taking it to that next step or kicking it off or taking it further down the road. Or they realize that in actual fact, it's much harder. You know, even though they can earn some money, they can no longer go out to the pub at night with their mates. They've got to give up football or hockey or whatever it may be. Now, you might say, well, surely they will have realized that before they got into it. No, a lot of people don't. The sacrifice that you have to give is incredible. And listeners, I'm sure you know that when you run your own business, so when you are responsible for those pounds, and you're responsible for your employees, then it is not a 9-to-5 job. It isn't. And you don't have weekends. And your holidays are often taken up with having to do work because, do you know what? If you don't do it, no one else will. And it is that realization that you're taking on not only a monkey, but you're taking on an army of apes as well on your back. If you want to do it, you have to shake those off, because you have the strength to do it, because that idea has come to you and what you need is that support around you. So mentoring comes in, support comes in, you know, helping that person over that start line. Once they get going, the adage of that boulder rolling down the hill and gathering moss is true. Just get them pointing in the right direction, just nudging left and right, and you'd be surprised what they can do once they begin to believe in themselves. So a common theme that I've found is self-doubt, confident in self, and that's punishing because you can have people go AWOL. I don't mean they disappear, but they'll sit at the desk and just wallow. What's wrong? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, well, just talk to me. What is it that's wrong? I don't know. They do know. Okay, so are you scared? Yeah. What are you scared of? Failure. Okay, so why are you thinking about failure now? We do. I rode the Atlantic some years ago. Before I went, people would say to me, are you afraid? No, I'm looking forward to it. Well, what if you die? What? I'm not thinking of dying. I'm actually thinking of enjoying myself. whilst I'm rowing out there. Well, what about the storms? Well, you can have a storm on that. Let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about the issue. If we have an issue, we'll worry about the action we need to get through it. And life can be like that. People don't do things because they're so busy worrying about what might happen. So that common theme is people with self-doubt. What happens if I fail? No, it's not about, can I get some money? No, because if you've got a good idea and you've got the right people helping you, supporting you, whether it's mum, dad, whether it's brother or sister or mentor, they will help you to get to that position. Share that decision making. Just say, I'm going to make that decision. What do you reckon? You can ask anybody. I've done this so many times. I've had a decision to make, and it's an important one, bearing in mind I have made mistakes, so be cautious. So I'm not only asked my wife, not only asked the kids when they were old enough, but I've also asked the barman. I've also asked some total stranger, just what do you reckon to this? Because you can't gather too much information. The more you have, the better it is, because there is something somewhere, somebody will say that you think, oh yeah, okay, boom, boom. Never give up. Don't think you can do it all yourself, but have confidence, go out, ask the questions, make sure you gather every single bit of information you can. And if you doubt, ask again. Because we've all been told at school, don't be afraid to ask a question. But you know what? None of us do. We don't put our hand up. We think people are going to think we're stupid if I ask. What did you mean by that? Ask, for goodness sake.
Have you found any common themes with those successful people in what they do and how they deal with situations?
Oh, that's a horrible question. That really is. When I look at that question, there are the two aspects. One are the people that I don't really like. They are let's start with them. They are the horribly arrogant people that will step on you and will crush you and don't care. And I've talked about self and confidence and charity, but this takes it to a level that's just unacceptable, where they will climb and pull you down. They will tread on you, they will make you bleed, and they will not look behind. They don't care about casualties. All they want is to reach that top where, I don't know, they're kings. And we see it today. Why would another country want to have somebody else's country? It's irrelevant that history, 1,000 years ago, they owned it. No one owns land, by the way. But they want it today. What gives you the right to say that? So start with that premise. There are some horrible people. So in business, there are horrible people. I'm sure you can give me a list. I'm sure you know at least one horrible person, whether it's somebody that caused you difficulty when you were starting or running your business, whether it's a customer that you have that you can never satisfy because whatever you do is wrong. And you just say to yourself, I wish you'd leave, but you don't want them to leave because that's a bit of a failure. So I don't like those people. They tread on you. They're not interested. They're not supportive. They run a culture of aggression and depression. It's not a nice place to work. We go back one step, those people that have self-belief, but also they create an environment of growth. So they're listening and they are hearing. So even though they may be a millionaire, whatever the company is, whether it's tech or whether it's service, doesn't really matter. But what they're doing, they're involving their people as far as practicable, at least being able to say, is the environment that I'm building for you right? Is the air conditioning okay? Does it work? It's not working. No one's told it. Why isn't it working? So even though you may run the business, paying attention to the people that are making that money work for you, it's all of that. As you become successful, and I have met both. I've met those people who, even though they have been so successful almost by default, without even trying, they have considered themselves very fortunate and they have gone backwards and they've actually walked around their shop floor, not in an arrogant way, but they know people. They know Mary, who's worked there for 20 years. They know Bert, who was a kid who's just got married. They're not paying the minimum wage. They're not overpaying the shareholders or paying themselves ridiculous money. What they're doing is sharing the bounty. They'll take a bigger slice of it, but not a greedy slice. How can you, in a lifetime, expect to spend £1 billion? I think that's a bit crass. Nice to reach that. We have philanthropists, don't get me wrong, we have wonderful people, but we also have lots of other people. So those people on that side who think about all the people that have helped them, as opposed to the other side. They don't care about the people they've trodden on and squashed. They're the people that I like, I respect, and I think, yeah, many more of those would go a long way to make not just our country, but also our business environment healthier.
Certainly important to be the right type of successful.
Yes, definitely.
Has building the academy taught you anything new about how people learn and grow in business?
I think, to be honest with you, I'm on a learning curve. I'm new to it. So it would be totally inappropriate and arrogant for me to say absolutely, because that's not true. Because businesses will come to the academy for a number of different reasons. And even though I have said before, there is a sort of formula that you can apply, but the key one is listening and hearing. And until you do that and you understand what the problems are, then you can't take them to that next position. And there are so many external reasons why they're there that aren't necessarily the business itself. Sometimes that needs unpicking. In actual fact, the business is fine. It's sound, but it's not being focused on for lots of different reasons. And it's meandered off course. I'm going to reserve judgment on answering until a later stage because I'm part of the academy as well. I'm learning, and what I'm doing, I'm sharing what I have. And I know that businesses are teaching me as well in a different way.
Definitely an ongoing process, isn't it?
It is.
What's the one thing you hope people feel when they join the academy?
I hope that they join for the right reason. I hope we have explained to them the reason why they should join the academy, because there's two halves of that equation. I want to go to the cinema, but should I see that movie? Should you see that movie? And if going through that plus some other sort of tick boxes, they say, yeah, I really want to. I believe it can help me. I mean, it's that help me, because I don't believe any of us can go through life without help. Again, going back, we find it difficult to ask for help. That aspect, I think, is important. If somebody comes on board genuinely, I just go back to another analogy. So again, what we've missed in our country is being respectful to our flag. In America, of course, you swear allegiance to a flag, not to a person, but to a flag, because that flag represents the country, represents the culture. You sign up to something and you have a belief in it. And we are creatures of habit, and we all love movements, don't we? So if we can, with the academy, get behind young businesses, businesses that are struggling, so we don't let those businesses struggle and fail, because that's what happens. There isn't really anybody out there to help them, to be honest. There isn't. The banks will take the rugs away as soon as they smell that the rugs haven't been washed for a couple of days. That's it. They're out. And that's without anybody else they borrowed money from. It's that support. It's knowing that you've got a safe haven to go to, even if it's just popping in for a coffee and saying, I've got this problem. You know that you're going to get people who aren't going to say, oh, don't be silly. You should have known that. You learnt that at school. You know, somebody that says, tell me, I'm listening. Okay, I hear what you say. Okay, my experience is, or let's go down the corridor and let's have a chat with a few people. No, if we can do that and help those young businesses grow with the support and let them flourish, but those that are on the downward cycle or just stuck somewhere in between, but eventually they will nosedive, help them to go to a next level or to understand what they need to do, whether it's the funeral or whether it's, okay, on holiday, let's take off when we get back. That for me is important.
There's a lot of experience that both yourself and Paul have been through in your business lifetime. Not all positive, as we've touched upon. If you could go back and speak to your younger self, what's the one bit of advice you would give your previous version of your business self?
This sounds rather mystical. When I've been faced with a decision that when I look back on it, and listeners, I'm sure many of you will say, oh yeah, I've been in there as well. And you've heard the old saying of gut feel, go with your gut feel. Okay. And don't overthink it. And there have been a number of times when a decision has had to have been made, whether I've got a week to make it, whether I've got a day to make it, or I need to make it now. And that voice has said to me, either yes or no, and I've not listened to it. I've actually said, that's white noise. And I've sat down and I've taken out a spreadsheet, and I've taken out a slide rule, I've taken out a calculator, and I thought, no, I've got to look at this. And you know what? It's been the wrong decision.
Mm.
It has been the wrong decision. And I know I often say, well, should I have left BAT when I did? Or should I just stay there as a corporate director? And I had the voice that said, go, don't stay. And I went and I listened to it. But then when I was on my own, out there rowing on my own, I didn't listen to some of those decisions and I floundered on the rocks. So, yeah, that gut feel is important, even if you do something. And today, when my sons have asked me, and I've said, okay, if you get that gut decision comes to you, write it down. Don't dismiss it. Get a piece of paper, write down what it said to you, okay? Don't lose that piece of paper. You can do your analysis by all means, but before you make your decision, go back to that piece of paper and try and understand why that voice said it to you. Because we dismiss it out of turn. Because it's just said no. Why? There's no rhyme or reason, but there is, because it's inside you and you've got to get it out. Yeah, I failed to listen to that a number of times and I paid the penalty for it.
That's a very sound piece of advice, not just in business, but in every aspect of life, whether that be relationships or your safety when you're in public. It applies to pretty much everything.
Yes, very much so.
Our next episode, we will be welcoming Paul back to speak with Phil about how business matching actually works. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us again today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
If today's episode gave you fresh insight, a practical takeaway, or simply something to think about, hit follow, leave us a rating or review, and share the episode with someone else navigating the same landscape. Networking Working is powered by Business Matching UK, a movement changing the way businesses connect, collaborate, and grow. If you're ready to take a more strategic, supported approach to your business development, one that's built on strategy, not chance, then BMUK is what you didn't know you needed. Visit www.business-matching.co.uk to explore more and register your interest.
The information in this podcast is for general guidance and entertainment purposes only. The Networking Working podcast shares ideas and experiences to inspire and inform, and we believe they can be valuable, but they may only reflect part of your own business journey. We always recommend seeking independent advice and using your own judgment to decide what's right for your business. We encourage you to do your own research before making any decisions. The opinions in this episode are our own and those of our guests, and we do our best to ensure the content is accurate and relevant at the time of recording. If you have any questions or would like to continue the conversation, you can reach us at info@business-matching.co.uk. Thank you for listening.